What is happening beneath the feet of millions of people in New Delhi? Beneath the bustling streets where traffic jostle and city lights never turn off, lies a world that few dare to look down into, dark, stuffy, and filled with the smell of sewage. There are no roofs, no beds, only sewage, moss-covered cliffs, and silent breathing in the dark. A place that seems uninhabitable is home to many. They have no maps, no addresses, no clear voice in society. Every day underground is a struggle not just against disease and poverty, but also against oblivion. Is there room for hope at the bottom of the bustling metropolis? This journey will bring light into the darkest places. Number 1. Urbanization and inside the Indian sewer system. Above the sound of car horns, blared sunlight bathed the crowded rooftops and people lined up on the sidewalks. Below, just a few meters away, was a completely different space. No voices, no light, only the sound of water dripping from the sewer walls, the stench thick in the humid air, and the layer of mud clinging to every surface. It was a world not meant for life, but it was sheltering hundreds of people trying to survive every day. In the rapidly urbanizing capital of New Delhi, the underground sewer system is a vital part of the city's infrastructure. But hidden deep within the network is a truth that many people ignore. People live and work in the sewers themselves amid untreated sewage household waste and toxic gases that have accumulated over years. No paperwork, no contracts, no protective equipment. They step into the sewers with bare feet, using their bare hands to clear the sludge wading through the thick sewage, not knowing if they will ever return to the surface. Manual sewer cleaning has been banned by the Indian government for many years, but the reality is very different. Lacking manpower, machinery, and funding, many localities still secretly hire manual workers to deal with clogged pipes. These workers often come from the lowest strata of society, where the dream of a solid roof or a job with health insurance is a luxury. They live in makeshift slums on the outskirts of the city, in makeshift huts made of corrugated iron, plastic, and rubble. Some even have nowhere to go, so they find a way to sleep in the sewer system, where the only warmth comes from human breath and the smell of garbage. Every morning, when the city is still in a haze, they follow garbage trucks or walk miles to get to work. No one calls them by name. No one says good morning. No one asks where they slept, what they ate, or how they are. They are given only a rope, a plastic bucket, and a point at a black, steaming manhole. The work begins with a plunge into the depths and often ends with a resurfacing soaked to the skin, with mud sticking to the roots of their hair. There are no oxygen masks, no medical gloves, and no one above to catch them if they suffocate or slip. Many people die in the sewers without anyone noticing until their bodies float to the surface or are discovered by a stronger than usual stench. According to NGOs, hundreds of sewer-related deaths occur each year, but only a small fraction are officially recorded. The reason? Because they don't exist on paper. Because their deaths don't generate a lawsuit, a news report, or even a proper funeral. Underground time does not follow the rhythm of life above ground. There are no clocks, no calendars, just a lingering sense of fatigue and the slow beating of the heart in the cramped space. Those who live in the sewer system often find ways to make use of abandoned pipes to make a place to sleep. A few rotten planks, a few torn blankets scavenged from the garbage dump, a few plastic bottles used as makeshift oil lamps. That is all they have. And then, when the rains come inevitable in New Delhi, the sewage rises, washing everything away in minutes. There is no warning, no alarm system, no shelter. Many people choose to live in the sewers, not because they want to hide, but because they have no other choice. The cramped above-ground housing complexes are already overcrowded. Urbanization policies have forced many people out of their temporary homes to make way for commercial buildings. And when there is no more land to pitch their tents, they are forced underground, a place the city has abandoned. The old sewers built during the British colonial period have become temporary homes for the unacknowledged. But this is not a place where people can live for long. The air is stuffy, bacteria spread, insects and snakes appear frequently. Even a small wound can lead to blood poisoning. Many people suffer from chronic respiratory problems, skin diseases, or are unable to work after living and working in the sewer system for a few years. But no one comes to ask, let alone help. They are considered an invisible part of the city, appearing only when a flood is needed or a sewer is cleared. Then they disappear as if they never existed. Number 2. Consequences of unfair development in New Delhi. New Delhi is one of the world's fastest-growing cities, with gleaming skyscrapers, bustling malls, and sprawling modern neighborhoods. But all of that is only half the story. The other half, deep underground, is a different story. A place where the light never reaches. A place where life is all about clinging. Without needing any drama, just looking at how a modern city leaves these people to drift down the sewer system is enough to raise the question: is development really for all? Can a glamorous metropolis exist without paying the price of the lives and dignity of the weak? Without mirrors, the faces of the people in the sewers gradually became strangers to themselves. Day by day, mud sewage and rusty metal dust from pipes covered their skin, making their self-image a vague concept. But what was more terrifying was not the dirt or the stench, but the feeling of no longer existing in the eyes of others. No one looked down the sewer. No one stopped at the mouth of the sewer to ask if there were people living there. The city moves on. Above cozy dinners, lights from shopping malls spilling onto the streets, laughter echoing from cafes. Below, people huddle quietly in the shadows. A dry piece of bread, a sip of dirty water from a recycled plastic bottle, a short nap before the noise above wakes them with a tremor. And then, the next day, everything repeated itself. There was no call, no march for them. Just them, quietly clinging to life, hoping that one day the light would come. But sometimes, in the darkest places, people begin to spark a ray of light. A small movement, a hand reaching out, a seemingly meaningless change, is enough to start a new journey. Number 3. Class distinguishment underground. Where every step was a test of the body's endurance, it seemed like nothing could grow. But then, amid the moldy walls and the constant sound of sewage, something else began to creep in: faith. Faith does not come from grand projects or promises from above. It begins with a few quiet people who walk through the slums. Stop near the manhole, put their hands on the moss-covered concrete, and say, "We must do something." It is in the places where no one else wants to stop that they build simple but vital things: a small board for a mobile classroom, a cart carrying old books, a free medical clinic at a dusty intersection. To those above, these may be just charitable activities, but to those underground, they are the first door opened in the thick darkness. Outside, a wide manhole, under the shade of a tree, whose name no one remembers, a few dozen old plastic chairs are lined up. Children from the sewers, from damp walls, from the corners around the slums begin to gather. Their hands are still muddy, their shirts still smell of sewage, their eyes still cautious. But when the volunteer teacher picks up a piece of chalk and writes the first letters, that look begins to change. No one can say how far these lessons will take them, but at least it creates one thing: choice. Many of these children have never been to school. For them, the ground is a place that people ignore. The sewer is a shelter, Now, in a small yard, they can hold a pen and draw their own dreams. Some draw a house. Some draw a road that is not flooded. Some just draw the sun with two hands reaching up to touch it. These paintings have no technique, no composition, but are full of genuine emotions, as if all good things are waiting for someone to see them. Not stopping there, some social groups began lobbying local governments to test sensor systems in sewers. Instead of sending people down manually, devices equipped with toxic gas sensors were introduced, allowing remote monitoring and reducing risks to workers. In some areas, deaths dropped significantly after just a few months of testing. These small devices, seemingly just technology, became a symbol of something that people living underground never had protection. Life is also starting to change. Some people who used to live in the sewers are being supported to reintegrate into the community, have temporary housing, and have part-time jobs. Smiles are starting to appear more often on sun-tanned faces, no longer avoiding the camera lens. A person who used to quietly avoid other people's eyes is now standing and explaining how to install a simple water filter to slum residents. No need for great steps, just real movements. In the middle of the streets that were once dirty and hopeless, music now plays from small speakers every morning. It is a signal that classes will start on time today. Some parents start encouraging their children to go to school even though they still do not have enough to eat every day. No one knows what the future holds for these children, but being able to dream, even if it is just holding a new pen, is something that no one would have dared to think about a few years ago. The first rays of light do not explode like fireworks. They come slowly, thinly, and sometimes so fragile that people fear that a single gust of wind could blow them out. But it is that slowness that makes people cherish every moment they are present. The light does not come from a street lamp, but from a blank sheet of paper that begins to have words from a dream spoken aloud from a hand held without a reason. According to statistics from a social organization in Delhi over the past 3 years, more than 1,500 children in the sewer areas have had access to basic education. The number is small compared to the population size of the city, but it is a significant step forward in a context where previously there was no choice for these children but to grow up in the dark and become the next generation of sewer workers. At some points, the number of people re-entering school or learning a trade increased by nearly 30% after just 1 year of community intervention. Classes without blackboards, but with listening. Without whitewashed walls, but with determined eyes. No one promised to change the whole system, but everyone tried to open a door. People who were once invisible began to leave their mark on the city's surface, not with cries for help, but with concrete actions, teaching literacy, instructing on waste disposal, cleaning up a street corner that used to be a place for illegal dumping. During a major pre-monsoon inspection of the city's sewer system, a team of technicians was surprised to find a section of the sewer that had been cleaned. No one claimed credit. No one wrote names. There was only a faint chalk message on the damp wall. "This used to be home. Keep it cleaner." It was not a lament, but a sign that a tiny sliver of hope had taken root, though no one was sure how long it would last. Not all succeed. Many drop out of the programs because they can't continue because of illness, because of hunger, because they have to go back to work in the sewers to support their families. But a few stand firm. And it is from those few that the story begins to resonate. A small ray of light is enough to lead the way if someone is patient enough to follow it. Number 4. Clearance of slums forced eviction without compensation. The monsoon season arrived early that year. Gray clouds blanketed the city, making the daylight as dim as a long afternoon. Delhi residents began to worry about flooding, and those living in the sewers felt the hourly surge of water more than anyone else. The smell of mud, toxic gases, and sewage swept through the pipes, filling every nook and cranny where they had once slept. There were no warnings from the city, no sirens or weather reports specifically for the underground dwellers. They knew that one night of rain would wash away everything they owned. And then the rain came relentlessly. Over 3 days, rainfall in some parts of Delhi exceeded 250 mm, one of the highest in a decade. Major roads turned into rivers, many residential areas were cut off. But the damage above ground was still being reported, while underground, where no reporter dared to wade the losses, were silent and nameless. More than 7 people were reported missing on the first night alone. Some bodies were found stuck at the intersection of major pipes. Many were left without a trace. All were swept away as if they had never existed. Pilot projects for flood and toxic gas sensors have been stalled due to lack of funding. This is partly due to cost cutting, but also because of political pressure to prioritize new, clean, media-friendly urban areas over old, unseen sewers. Those who had hoped that technology would be a savior have found it to be a broken promise. In the dark, they are left to fend for themselves once again. At the same time, a series of suburban land plots that were temporary shelters for many families living in sewers were hastily cleared to make way for a commercial high-rise project. No notice, no compensation, no resettlement support. Temporary tents were dismantled in a few hours, adults were chased away. Children were left bewildered, carrying a few broken toys. No one stood up to take responsibility. Everything happened as if it was just a normal process in the process of city development. And when there was nowhere else to go, those who had bravely stepped out of the darkness were forced to return underground, a place they had once wished they would never have to live in again. No one said it, but everyone knew that the old cold had returned. The damp air, the smell of toxic gas, the moldy walls were no longer unfamiliar. The silence returned faster than the sprint. The plastic chairs in the classroom were no longer arranged. The bell that announced class times did not ring. The mobile book cart now lay still under the torn corrugated iron roof. Some volunteers no longer showed up, not because they had given up, but because they did not know who would stay to help. This time, the fall was not as violent as a sudden blow. It was a long slide, like a slow but sure crack. No one cried out, no one banged on the door demanding rights. Everything happened quietly, as if the people involved had grown accustomed to being forgotten. The dream that once flickered is now just a dim old light in the sewer. Some people still hold on to their old student ID cards as a souvenir, a proof that there was once light. But sometimes the memory of light is more painful than the current darkness because it reminds people that they once had hope. Number 5. Media and international reaction. News of the historic rains that had plunged the city into chaos largely focused on the surface-flooded streets, power outages in upscale neighborhoods, stalled vehicles. No one mentioned the people in the sewers until a video less than 3 minutes long went viral on social media. The grainy image taken from an old cell phone showed a man waving for help from a manhole in the swirling black water. The caption read simply, "They are people too. Why isn't anyone saving them?" The video went viral, surpassing 1 million views in just 48 hours. The media began to take notice. Several independent newspapers published stories about the unnamed deaths. Questions were raised at several city council meetings why the warning system had failed, why aid projects had been suspended, why people were left living in the sewers. Officials initially tried to keep quiet, but the growing public pressure made it impossible to ignore. An independent documentary team from Mumbai spent 6 months secretly filming in the sewers around Delhi. They collected more than 60 hours of real-life footage scenes of sewer cleanings by hand children sleeping on sewage pipes unfinished school lessons at the edge of manholes. When the trailer was released, it caused a stir not only in India, but also on international platforms. A European human rights organization immediately sent a petition to the Indian government asking for an explanation of the living and working conditions of hundreds of thousands of sewer cleaners. According to the National Commission for Safai Karamcharis, more than 400 people have died while cleaning sewers by hand between 2016 and 2023, most of them informal and uninsured workers. This figure is only the tip of the iceberg as many cases go unreported. Under public and international pressure, the Ministry of Urban Development was forced to announce the reintroduction of mechanized sewer cleaning in 100 key districts and pledged to ban all forms of manual labor by 2026. The momentum has come not just from policy, but from those who were once invisible. A group of former sewer dwellers have joined forces with nonprofits to create a network to report violations in hotspots. They use cheap smartphones and free internet access from community stations to send images and real-time data to the press. A nameless person has become the unofficial spokesperson for a once silent community, testifying at a regional urban forum in Asia detailing how a 7-year-old boy went missing in a sewer and was found 2 days later when the water receded. Meanwhile, in a previously cleared area, a group of volunteers built a temporary shelter model using recycled materials. Each small room is covered with insulated corrugated iron, has bunk beds, electric fans, and separate dry toilets. Each area can accommodate 40 people with priority given to women and children. In the first 3 months, nearly 200 people were brought above ground, given temporary accommodation health cards and vocational training. The sponsoring organization reported a stable resettlement rate of nearly 60%, a figure rarely seen in previous social programs. The feeling is not only one of anger, but also of belief that something is really changing. Even if it is not yet complete, even if there are still many gaps, this is the first time in many years that people living in the sewers are being talked about with respect. They are no longer labeled as dirt remnants of society, but as victims of a development system that has neglected its foundations. At an outdoor screening in Delhi, set in a central park, when the end of the documentary featured children reciting poetry right next to the sewer, the audience fell silent. People who had once passed by life in the sewer without looking could not look away. They did not know whether to applaud or bow their heads. The emotions that had been pent up for so long came flooding out, not because of any shocking scene, but because the truth was so close, so real, and so long hidden. Number 6. Under the City. Thank you for joining NVL Travel documentary on this journey to discover another world just below the ground of New Delhi. Hopefully, what you have just seen will not only provide information, but also awaken in you a new perspective on people, on life, and on the quiet resilience that exists in places that seem to be forgotten. If you find this video meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the true emotional stories from around the world that we will continue to bring. Each of your views and comments is a great source of motivation to help us continue telling untold journeys. See you in the next episodes of NVL Travel Documentary, where the truth is not on the surface. Goodbye, and see you again.